Have you ever felt overwhelmed with the constant sense of urgency in your startup? It's a feeling that many of us know all too well. You're constantly racing against the clock, juggling a multitude of tasks that all seem to demand your immediate attention. It's as if you're caught in a whirlwind of urgency, where everything is important and nothing can wait. Welcome to the world of false urgency. It's a common scenario in startups where the pace is fast and the stakes are high. You're trying to disrupt markets, innovate and grow, all while staying ahead of the competition. It's no wonder that everything feels urgent. But here's the thing about false urgency. It's a trap. It creates a stressful environment that's not conducive to productivity or creativity. Rather than propelling your startup forward, it often leads to burnout, decreased productivity, and a loss of focus on what truly matters. Imagine this. It's a typical day at your startup. Your team is buzzing with energy, fueled by the belief that every task is a priority. Emails are flying back and forth, meetings are being scheduled and rescheduled, and everyone is multitasking. It feels like progress. But is it really? The reality is that when everything is urgent, nothing is. The constant sense of urgency can lead to hasty decision-making, mistakes, and missed opportunities. It can also create a culture of reactiveness, where you're always putting out fires instead of strategically planning for the future. And here's the kicker. False urgency can also stifle innovation. When you're in a constant state of urgency, there's little time for reflection, brainstorming, or exploring new ideas. Instead, you're always in execution mode, focused on the immediate tasks at hand. If you're nodding along, you're not alone. It's a trap many startups fall into. But don't worry, there's a way out. Stay tuned as we delve into the story of success amidst chaos and reveal how you can escape the false urgency trap and set your startup on a path to true success. Consider the story of Startup X, a small tech company that found itself in the false urgency trap. Once upon a time, in the bustling world of tech startups, there was a company called Startup X. It was a team brimming with bright minds and ambitious hearts. They had solid ideas, a promising business model, and the potential for great success. However, they found themselves constantly racing against the clock, in a perpetual state of urgency. This urgency wasn't born out of necessity, but rather it was a culture they had unwittingly cultivated. Every task, every project, every idea was deemed urgent. The team was constantly in a state of high alert, always rushing, always scrambling. It was as if they were in a ship, sailing in stormy seas, hectically bailing water out, while failing to notice that the storm had passed. This culture of false urgency came with a heavy price. It led to employee burnout. The constant pressure and the relentless pace took a toll on the team. They were stressed, tired, and their creativity was stifled. The bright minds that once sparkled with innovative ideas were now clouded with fatigue. Productivity, too, took a hit. The team was so focused on doing things quickly, they lost sight of doing things right. The quality of their work suffered. Deadlines were missed. Projects that were once promising were now falling behind schedule. And then, there was the turnover. The high-stress environment led to a revolving door of employees. The cost of hiring and training new staff was high, not to mention the loss of institutional knowledge each time a valuable team member left. Startup X was in a precarious position. They were caught in the vortex of false urgency, and it was pulling them down. But they didn't let this be their downfall. They decided to overcome this culture of false urgency. The turning point for Startup X came when they recognized the vital need to distinguish between real and false urgency. With this new perspective, they began a journey of re-evaluation. They started by identifying the tasks that were truly urgent. This was a complex process requiring keen discernment and a deep understanding of their business operations. They had to look beyond the immediate demands and consider the long-term impact of their decisions. Startup X then took the next step, prioritization. This meant arranging their tasks in order of their actual importance and urgency. It was no longer about who shouted the loudest or what appeared to be pressing at first glance. It was about the real value of tasks and their contribution to the overall business goals. They began to differentiate the critical from the merely important, and the important from the trivial. As Startup X sharpened their focus on what was truly urgent, they also began to understand the importance of delegation. By entrusting certain tasks to capable members of their team, they were able to free up time and energy for the truly urgent matters. This not only increased productivity, but also fostered a sense of responsibility and ownership among the team members. They also learned to say no. Not every request or demand warranted their attention or response. They learned to refuse tasks that were not aligned with their priorities or didn't contribute to their goals. This was not about being dismissive or arrogant, but about being strategic and focused. In this journey, Startup X realized that not everything was a fire that needed to be put out immediately. They discovered that by constantly reacting to a perceived sense of urgency, they were only creating chaos and stress, hindering their growth and productivity. Startup X began to see changes. They were becoming more efficient, more focused, and less stressed. But the real transformation was still ahead. Change is never easy, but Startup X took the challenge head on. They recognized the need to shift away from a culture of false urgency to a culture of purposeful productivity. But how did they go about making this change? Firstly, they redefined their goals. They understood that clear, measurable objectives are the backbone of any successful venture. So they sat down as a team and asked themselves, what do we want to achieve? Where do we want to be in a year, in 5 years? They didn't just focus on financial targets, but also considered aspects like employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, and social impact. They made sure that these goals were not only ambitious, but also realistic and aligned with their resources and capabilities. Once they had a clear vision of their targets, they started prioritizing tasks. They understood that not everything can be urgent, so they classified their tasks into 4 categories: urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. This way, they made sure that crucial tasks were not buried under a mound of urgent yet insignificant tasks. They also made sure that employees focused on tasks that directly contributed to the company's goals. They also started encouraging their team to take regular breaks. They realized that a relaxed mind is a productive mind. They implemented a policy where employees were encouraged to take short breaks after every 90 minutes of focused work. They also started providing facilities like a relaxation room, games, and free snacks. They understood that a happy employee is a productive employee. Moreover, they started conducting regular team meetings where they discussed their progress towards their goals. They celebrated small victories to keep the team motivated. They also made sure to provide constructive feedback and address any issues or concerns promptly. They also started investing in training and development programs for their employees. They understood that the skills and knowledge of their employees are their biggest assets. So they made sure to provide them with opportunities to learn and grow. And guess what? Their efforts started paying off. The false sense of urgency started disappearing from their work culture. Employees started feeling more relaxed and focused. They were no longer rushing through tasks just for the sake of getting them done. Instead, they started putting in thoughtful effort, which led to better results. Slowly but surely, Startup X started to see a remarkable improvement in their work culture and productivity. They started moving closer to their goals. They started making a real impact. And all this was possible because they decided to take a stand against the culture of false urgency. They showed us that it's not about how fast you run, but about how well you run the race. As Startup X started focusing on true urgency, they began to thrive. The transformation was remarkable. With this newfound clarity, they were able to distinguish between the truly urgent tasks and the merely important ones, allowing them to prioritize and execute their work more effectively. With the elimination of false urgency, they were not just running around in circles anymore, they were running towards their goals. The productivity levels soared as the team was no longer weighed down by the stress of incessant deadlines and the constant pressure to do more in less time. They were able to focus on the tasks that mattered the most, and as a result, their output quality improved substantially. This change was not just confined to productivity, it seeped into the company culture as well. The relentless hustle and bustle gave way to a more balanced and sustainable work rhythm. Employees were no longer burning out. Instead, they were burning bright with enthusiasm and dedication. The reduced stress levels led to a decrease in employee turnover. Their workforce was more engaged, more committed, and most importantly, happier. The impact on their bottom line was just as profound. By focusing on true urgency, Startup X was able to deliver better products, provide superior service, and win the loyalty of their customers. Their reputation in the market improved, and they started attracting top talent who were drawn to their healthy work culture. In the end, Startup X didn't just survive the competitive startup landscape, they thrived in it. Their story is a testament to the power of true urgency. It's a story of how a single change in perspective can transform a struggling startup into a successful one. It's a story of how avoiding the trap of false urgency can lead to increased productivity, reduced turnover, and a happier workplace. Startup X is now a successful startup, all because they learned to avoid the trap of false urgency. Their journey serves as an inspiration for all those who are caught up in the whirlwind of false urgency. Their success story is a beacon of hope, a guiding light for startups around the world. So, what can we learn from the story of Startup X? Well, quite a lot actually. Let's rewind and take a moment to pull out the key points we've discussed in this video. Firstly, we've learned about the trap of false urgency. We've seen how it can create a chaotic work environment that hinders creativity and productivity. It's like running on a treadmill. You're moving fast, but you're not going anywhere. The first step in avoiding this trap is recognizing the difference between true and false urgency. True urgency is driven by a deep determination to win, not a fear of losing. It's about focusing on critical issues, not just pressing ones. It's about responding to opportunities and threats that are genuinely important and immediate. On the other hand, false urgency is driven by fear, anxiety, anger, or confusion. It's characterized by a flurry of unproductive activity, a constant firefighting mode, and the inability to prioritize tasks effectively. It's a frenzied response to perceived pressures that may not be as urgent as they seem. The story of Startup X has shown us the importance of setting clear goals and prioritizing tasks. Prioritizing tasks is not just about ticking off items on a to-do list. It's about aligning tasks with the startup's strategic goals. It's about identifying what's truly important and focusing on those tasks that drive the startup towards its vision. We've also seen how Startup X created a relaxed work environment despite the high stakes and high pressure nature of a startup. A relaxed work environment is not about taking it easy or slacking off. It's about creating a culture where people can think clearly, be creative, and deliver their best work. It's about respecting people's time and not creating unnecessary stress. The story of Startup X is a testament to the power of avoiding false urgency. It's a reminder that success isn't about rushing through tasks, but about focusing on what truly matters. It's about creating a culture where people can thrive and deliver their best work. In the end, the key to success lies in understanding the difference between true and false urgency, setting clear goals, prioritizing tasks effectively, and creating a relaxed work environment. It's about taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and focusing on what's truly important. Remember, success isn't about rushing through tasks. It's about focusing on what truly matters. Don't let false urgency be the downfall of your startup.